In this tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how to make the maple wood ear warmer. This is a free pattern which you can find on my blog. It comes in 6 different sizes from child all the way to adult large. You can also upgrade to the premium PDF. I'll leave all of the links in the description box so that you can go out and check out those options. I'm going to be using Yarnsmith's Pebble Haze, which is a DK weight. I will leave the shade details in the description box below. We are going to be using a 4mm crochet hook, and that is for all of the size options. You will need a stitch marker. This will help for identifying the first stitch of every row. You will need a tape measure when it comes to checking your sizes, and then you will also need a pair of scissors and a darning needle for fastening off and also creating this braided look at the front. So go ahead and take a look in the description box for everything that I've mentioned. Grab everything that you need and let's get started. So before we actually get started with the crocheting, I do want to talk about the construction and also the gauge, as well as a few different variations in the sizing. So as I mentioned, this pattern comes in 6 different sizes. It comes in baby, toddler, child, tween, adult and adult large. So the 6 sizes. The first 3 sizes, the baby, the toddler and the child, are going to be slightly smaller in height, and that's because we just have a few less rows within this, and then the tween, the adult and the adult large are a little bit thicker. So I'm going to demonstrate the child size, so it's going to be this smaller size, but actually we're just going to add in those extra rows, which is what I'm going to demonstrate anyway. So we're going to start off by making these oblongs, and then they're going to be joined together in a special way to create the knotted front. So I will just touch upon gauge before we get started, because the gauge is actually measured over the feather stitches. So we just want to look at these feather stitches here, and we want to locate a point where we're going to begin our measurement. So we have 1 full stitch here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then we have a half stitch here because that's the full stitch and it finishes around halfway. So we have 8.5 feather stitches per 4 inches. So that's what you want to be looking out for as you are making your band. The thickness of the band will come out at 2.5 inches for the first 3 sizes. The larger 3 sizes will measure 3.25 inches. Okay, so go ahead and grab everything and let's get started. As I say, I'm making the toddler size. I'll be using this colour, but my demonstration will apply to all sizes. So we're going to begin by creating our slip knot, and you can do this in whichever method you prefer. Go ahead and insert your crochet hook. And we're going to begin by creating our foundation row, and this is going to be done with foundation half treble crochet. So we're going to begin by chaining 3, 1, 2 and 3, and then we're going to begin our foundation half treble crochet, which is a UK term. In the US this is foundation half double crochet. So we're going to yarn over and insert our hook into the 3rd chain from the hook. We're going to yarn over and pull through, and then we have our 3 loops on the hook as we would do our half treble crochet or your half double crochet in US terms. But instead of yarning over and pulling through all 3, we're going to create a chain first of all. So we're going to yarn over and pull through that first stitch, and that creates the chain of the foundation chain. And then we're going to yarn over, pull through all 3 loops on the hook, and that creates our stitch. So we now have 1 stitch here, and these are the missed chains. We're going to go ahead and insert our stitch marker into the top of those missed chains, because those missed chains do count as a stitch. Let me just lift this out for a moment. So we have our first stitch, which is our missed chains, and then our first stitch here. We then want to find the chain that we've just made, which is at the base of the stitch here. And you want to imagine as you're working this, that we're building stitch by stitch, and then we actually turn, and then you'll see the foundation chain made. But you want to yarn over, go into the bottom of that stitch through both of the loops, because that is our foundation chain. Yarn over and pull through. You'll have 3 loops on the hook, yarn over and then chain 1, so just pull through that first loop. That creates the next chain that we're going to work into, and then yarn over, pull through all 3 of those loops, and then we have our 3rd stitch. I'll show you that again. Yarn over, find the base of the chain, that chain that we just made, yarn over, pull through, 3 loops on that hook, yarn over, create that chain first by pulling through 1 stitch, and then yarn over, pull through all 3 loops on the hook, and we've made our 4th stitch. So we're building, we're stacking on top of each other, but what we're eventually going to do is we're going to turn this, and then when we lay it down, we have all of our stitches made, which we're going to work back alongside. So if I just turn this round again so that you can see again, yarn over, go into that bottom chain, yarn over, pull through. We've created our stitch, but we're going to yarn over and pull through that first loop to chain 1, and then yarn over, pull through all 3 loops on the hook. And I'll show you once more, yarn over into the base of that chain, yarn over, pull through. You'll have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through that first loop to create the chain, and then yarn over, pull through all 3 to finish off the stitch. So this is what we're making as we're going across. If I lay it this way, and then eventually we're going to, once we've come to the end of the row, we'll flip over to start working back the opposite way. But you want to go ahead and work your foundation stitches. I'm making the toddler size, so I'm going to work 67 foundation half treble crochets. Go ahead, pause the video, work your foundation, and then meet me back once you're ready. So you should now have your long foundation half trebles or half doubles if you are in the US. And we're now ready to turn our work to work back the opposite way. So this will be row 1. Row 1 and 2 are the same for all the sizes. The instructions are the same. And then in the pattern, you'll see that it will split off for baby, toddler and child. So you'll do instructions for those because it's the smaller width. And then you'll have tween, adult and adult large for the larger width. And of course, if you want to make the smaller sizes wider, you can just follow the larger size just for the same amount of stitches that you have. So let's go ahead and chain 1, which does not count as a stitch, and we're going to work into this very first stitch just here with a half treble, which is a half double in US terms. Yarn over, insert into that first stitch, yarn over, pull through, 3 loops on the hook, and yarn over, pull through all 3 loops on your hook. And you can go ahead and take another stitch marker and just mark that the top of that very first stitch if you wish. And then what we're going to do is a pattern repeat. So we're going to chain 1, we're going to skip the next stitch, and then we're going to half treble into the next stitch. And we'll repeat that again, chain 1, skip the next stitch, and half treble into the next stitch. So you're going to repeat that all the way across, chain 1, skip a stitch, half treble, all the way until you get to the end of your row. So go ahead, pause the video, work that pattern, repeat, chain 1, skip a stitch, half treble, which is half double in US terms, and then meet me back once you're ready. So I've just worked my way across. I'm just going to remove my stitch marker from that very first stitch and then complete my half treble, which is a US half double in that very last stitch, and that is the end of row 1. So we've created these chain spaces all the way across. So we're now going to do row 2, which is again the same for every size. So we're going to turn the work, we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to work a half treble crochet into that very first stitch, like so. We're now going to work a beginning feather stitch, and we're going to be using this chain space and the skip chain, which is just at the base of this chain space here, and we're also going to be utilizing the next space. So this stitch is worked over 2 stitches, and this is the beginning feather stitch. So we're going to yarn over, we're going to go into that chain space and then yarn over and pull up a loop. You'll have those 3 loops on your hook. We're going to yarn over, and now we're going to work into that skipped chain space from 2 rows down, yarn over and pull up a loop, pull it up like so, and then we're going to yarn over and go into that next chain 1 space and yarn over and pull up a loop. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 loops on the hook. We're going to yarn over and pull through all 7 loops to create that feather stitch, and then we're going to chain 1. So that is our beginning feather and a chain 1, and now we're going to work the feather stitch all the way across. It's slightly different for the beginning stitch because we don't already have a stitch there, but now what we're going to do is we're going to do exactly the same stitch, but we're going to start into this chain 1 space here, which is where the first one spilled into, the last leg of this feather. So we're going to yarn over, go into this chain space where the last feather stitch finished, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over, go into the skipped stitch on that same chain space, yarn over and pull up a loop. Make sure you're lifting up your stitches so that you're not pulling too tightly on the feather stitch. And then we're going to locate that next chain 1 space, yarn over, go into the chain 1 space, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then yarn over, pull through all of those loops. Remember, when you're pulling through all the loops, don't keep your hook like this. You want to tilt your hook all the way down so that you can pull through and create that stitch. And we're going to chain 1. And you're going to repeat that feather stitch all the way across. So yarn over, we're going to start in the same chain space that the last feather stitch finished in. So go into that stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, go into the skip stitch under that chain space, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then yarn over, go into that next chain 1 space, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all of those loops on the hook, and then chain 1. So you're going to repeat that feather stitch all the way across. For the toddler size, we're going to have 32 of these feather stitches. So you want to work your way across. You'll get to this last chain space just here, and then once you're finished, meet me back, and then I'll show you how to finish off this row. Okay, so we've now worked our way all the way across with those feather stitches, and then we've finished with the last part of the feather going into the last chain 1 space, and then we have a chain 1 just here. So once you're at that point, you're going to remove your stitch marker, work a half treble into that very last stitch, which is a US half double crochet, and then we can go ahead and turn the work. So at this point, we either have 1 or 2 more feather rows. So for the thinner sizes, the first 3 sizes, we're just going to have 1 more row of feathers. And then for the tween, the adult, or the adult large, you're going to have another 2 rows of these feather stitches. So I'm going to demonstrate this row because you'll be working slightly differently because we have the feather row below it. So I'll show you where to place your stitches, but it's still pretty easy. And then you can use those instructions if you need to do another row as well. So we're basically going to repeat row 2. So we're going to chain 1, which does not count as a stitch, and then we're going to work a half treble crochet into that very first stitch, which is half double in US terms, and we'll start off with that beginning feather stitch. So we have our chain space just here, and then we also have a chain space below just here. So we're going to yarn over, we're going to go into that first chain space and then yarn over, pull through, and then you see this chain space below just here, yarn over into there, yarn over, pull through, and then we're going to find the next chain space of this current row and then go into that stitch as well and finish off our feather stitch. Chain one, and then we have our feather stitches all the way across. So yarn over into that chain one space where we worked the last part of the last feather, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, find that chain one space 2 rows below, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then yarn over and insert your hook into the next chain one space of the previous row, and then yarn over, pull through all of those loops on the hook and chain one, and you'll repeat this all the way across, working into those 3 chain spaces and chaining one in between. So you're going to repeat that all the way across until you get to the end. Your last chain one space can sometimes look a little bit hidden. It's just here. If you just pull it here, you can see it's sat underneath there. That's where the last part of your final feather stitch is going to go. So work your way across to there, make your final feather stitch, and then meet me back once you're ready. Okay, so I've just worked my way all the way across. I've just finished that last feather stitch in that chain one space. I've done my chain one, and I'm going to work a half treble into that very last stitch, which is a half double in US terms. So if you are doing the thicker headband, you're going to go ahead and do another row exactly the same as what we've just done. So pause the video and work that row, and after that you can join me back for this next row, and for the smaller sizes we'll just go straight on to this next row. So you're going to chain one and turn, and what we're going to do is we're going to work a half treble, which is US half double crochet, into that very first stitch, and then we're going to half treble into the chain one space and then into the top of the next stitch, which is the feather stitch, and then into the chain one space and then into the feather stitch, and we're going to do this all the way across. So 1 half treble, which is a US half double crochet, into chain one space and then into the top of the next stitch, which is the feather stitch, all the way across until you get to the end of your row. So again, at the end we have a chain one space just here, and then we have the final stitch. So go ahead, pause the video, work that all the way across, and then meet me back once you're ready. Okay, so you should now have the first section of your band, and then what you're going to do is you're going to repeat that. That's upside down. You're going to repeat that again. So where we did row 1, 2, 3 and 4, you're going to repeat row 1, 2, 3 and 4 again. So the next row is where you do your chain 1 half treble, chain 1 skip a stitch half treble, so you'll do that all the way across. Then you'll do your feather rows again, either 2 feather rows or 3 feather rows like this one. So we have the 1, 2, 3 feather rows, and then you'll end with the row that we have just done. So rewind the video if you need to, repeat rows 1 to 4 again for the smaller version, or repeat rows 1 to 5 again for your larger version. Do not fasten off once you get to the end. Meet me back once you're ready and I'll show you how we're going to turn this into a headband. Okay, so I've now done that second repeat of rows to take it to the width that I need for my size. And now what I'm going to do is fasten off, but when you do this, you want to leave a long tail end for sewing. So you want to leave it, I always like to err on the side of caution. So we're not going to need this much, but roughly about double the length of the size of your headband. So we're going to pull this out, And now we're going to do the joining to create the knot at the front. So this is what it's going to look like. And the way that we do this is we want to thread up our darning needle, and we want to take the shorter ends and we're going to fold them inwards like this. So folding them inwards towards each other, and then we're creating a sandwich. So we're almost creating a zigzag. And then you want to just place them all nice and neatly together. And we're going to take our darning needle and go through all 4 thicknesses. So you're going to go all the way through and then come back round, working through all 4 thicknesses, and then back again. And then just working your way all the way across. And like I say, I have plenty of yarn here. You could probably get away with just one length of the headband. I'm going to go all the way through, just making sure that you do catch each of those rows. And then I'm just going to go over once more just to make it nice and secure. And then once you're happy, you can go ahead and fasten off. Weave in your ends. And then once you've done that, all you need to do is turn it the right way round. And there you have your twist. So I really hope that you have enjoyed making this ear warmer. Please make sure you give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And I would love to see if you have made these. So please make sure that you tag me on social media. And if you like this video, then you also might like this one too.